Welcome back to the episode. Dana,
start laughing already.
Dana and I are we're just gonna do a fun little one here because Dana and I are sharing how the lack of a filter. I'm not talking about a water filter. I'm talking about like your brain filter, your social filter. You know, this filter. Yep. How sometimes it gets very faulty,
loose,
loose or dislodged. I was sharing with Dana that, I mean, people who know me and work together with me know that I am definitely not your run-of-the-mill, stuffy psychologist who takes things very seriously. They know that. However, the other day I shared with Dana that I've had multiple gems of unprofessionalism throughout the year. This one would be one. I literally run a school meeting with
oh my God,
I don't know, 6 to 7 professional people plus the mother of the student.
Right.
And it was just two professionals and a mom and the mom. So everyone hadn't gotten there yet. So to be fair to me, it wasn't the entire team
and chatting. Yeah.
However, when he showed up and turned on, like he had the biggest mustache, and he doesn't usually have one. So it caught me off guard, and I said something along the lines of, "Look at you showing up with a porn stash." Friends, this is not my finest moment.
How did they react?
They laughed, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It's probably not the most professional thing for me to say." And he then proceeded to tell us the story of why he has a mustache and like and that it's like a homage to something and like it's like it was super cute.
Yep.
But for the whole meeting, niggling in the back of my mind was,
oh God.
Did you want ketchup with your foot, Gwen? Why do you do this? Why do you say? And I will say this happens to me quite often actually because I am very friendly, like in general. And I say things leak out, like things definitely like I don't think I have an intact filter.
Well, it's interesting because if you talk about the neurodivergent like propensity towards not having a filter, it's sort of like, saying what you want to say when you want to say it, right? I'll have people that'll say they do that and they get in trouble because of it. But where do they get in trouble? Right? Trouble. They get in trouble in an environment that they're supposed to not be acting that way, or they say something that is not fully formed and the other person takes offense or whatever, right? And in that, I've had that too with where I teach. I'll say something in a meeting with fellow faculty, and I've sort of gotten to the point where I can tell where it's going to be something funny, and I think they enjoy the offbeat humor. But every once in a while, something gets out there like that, and no one laughs, and I'm like, oh God, there it is, right? And the fear is, or the thought as you're telling your story is, we're humans too. And why do we have to act a certain way? You professional, right? Why is it that you're not taken as a professional if you're like your human self, where you're actually laughing and teasing and being silly with stuff? Why is that not okay? Right?
Yeah. And I think about myself and what I bring to the work. And it like I would never be able to be a psychodynamic or analytic therapist because I am not a blank slate kind of gal.
Yeah.
But I think like my weird connections and my humor and being a little bit inappropriate really add like that's kind you my flavor.
Yeah.
But I think
mine too, which is why one of the reasons we get along so well.
We get along great. Like you guys should. I mean, Steve has been wanting. I should just start clipping behind the scenes and just make a behind the scenes thing just for Steve.
Steve, we have to do it.
I just for you, Steve. We'll do it just for you. But the problem with those, though, you guys, is that it's pretty. it can get
Or
really out
can
there
get,
for Dana and
yeah,
I.
can't, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just saying, like some of the things that we talk about before we hit that,
Yeah,
before I edit it is,
yeah.
you know,
I almost feel
that's
like
something
though I'm to the
special.
point in my career where I can't worry about that too much anymore.
I
Do you know
know.
what I mean? Maybe you get to a point in
Yeah.
your life where, I mean, not that I want to just go off the rails all the time, but
Yeah.
there was this changing moment for me in my teaching career where I had my back to the students and I was writing something on the board and a fart snuck out, an audible fart. And I thought I could stand here and ignore it. So if this is me at the board writing and it happened and I just went and smiled to my students and then went back and they all laughed. And they said afterwards, they're like, we just love that you were being human, because they'll talk about some other instructors that are always so serious, and
Yeah.
that's fine. But I think if, yeah, the lack of filter, I think we get a bad rep for it. And I do think because we're so rapid fire thinking that sometimes they get out there, it's hard to know the difference between, is this a setting for this? Should I tell them that I think it looks like a porn mustache? You said that to me before we went on the air, and I go to a bam chicka bam bam. We always say that, that kind of funny music when me and my
Yeah.
wife, when we're looking at it. And you don't think about like, how would it be received, whatever. It's just sort of this funny thing that is in your brain and it comes out, right? And I
Yeah.
think that probably the younger you are, the harder it is. I can remember saying a lot of things as a kid and people being like, what the hell? And you do sort of learn but things come out. For me, I think now I can say a couple times I've said things in a work meeting and it hasn't gone over well. And I'll say, oh, I'm sorry, that's an autism thing. And I do think that they at least have a frame for understanding it. But for the most part, my colleagues know me well enough by now to know that I have this really weird sense of humor, and I think they kind of enjoy it, right? But yeah, in a situation like that, like what would you do? I mean, is it really right or wrong? But the filter issue, I think a lot of people can identify with, or lack thereof.
Yeah.
Right?
I think about the word authentic,
Yeah, or congruent.
be congruent,
Yeah,
authentic self. And that, so much of the way I work is really kind of being able to allow my brain also to have these connections
yeah,
that really help me with interpretation and
yeah.
help me ask the right questions and all of this. And so, the more I sit with this, I mean, I feel like I have some insight with why, like, the shame stick gets brought in so much with this, which
Yeah,
is when I was in my when I was in my internship, I had a supervisor who used shame
oh,
as the primary motivator and growth tool.
oh,
And I remember, so the first thing they got me on is that when I wrote the letter to all of my internship sites, because here in the United States, you have to match with your your internship site in your psychology training. I put my letter on letterhead that had Christmas lights around it.
oh, okay.
And when I get into supervision with her, she's like, the first thing I want to handle to handle is your letter. And I was like, oh, like what?
Wow.
She goes, you put it on letterhead with Christmas lights around it. And mind you, this is when we submitted our applications.
Yeah, it was around the
It was
holidays. Yeah.
around this time.
Happening right now with my students that are applying. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yep.
she's like, I'm Jewish.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. But it just like on and on every year, like I was wearing, what I thought were professional clothes. And one day she just said to me in front of my other colleagues, by the way, in a group supervision, Gwen, I want you to look around and see how everyone else is dressed and then look at yourself.
Oh my God. Wow.
Do you think that you look as professional as everyone else?
Wow.
So it was like a lot of shame and like things like, you're young, you look younger than you are, which I do. I mean, like, yay, thank you, Asian, don't raisin.
Yeah.
And you're a woman.
Yeah.
So it's harder for you to just kind of get that professional, vibe. And like all of these things just kept haunting me. And I think they do, they
Yeah.
have some remnants. It's probably why I've got some imposter syndrome today.
Yeah.
We've
Oh, yeah,
spoken
yeah.
about that.
And you
And
had it reinforced through the
yeah.
supervisor and those expectations. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it totally like ratcheted my gift,
Yeah. Oh,
which
gotcha.
is letting things fly, letting it fly a little bit,
You said, "Oh,
like
I'm
that's
gonna
my
let it. I'm
gift.
not gonna let it go away. I'm gonna." Yeah. 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 Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
so, now I can look back and be like, I get her intention. I mean,
Yeah.
that was not fantastic. It did
That's
not
true. I
feel
mean,
good.
like, if I had someone who was becoming a psychologist and sent me a letter with Christmas lights on it, I might be like, "Hmm." But
Yeah.
someone who's been in practice for 30 years and,
Yeah.
is board certified and all that, I'd be like, if they're wearing a hoodie, whatever. And a colleague who would teach in a
Yeah.
hoodie.
Yeah.
And when I first met him, I'm like, God, could you, what the, and then I'm like, it doesn't matter, really.
Yeah.
He's done enough work and he knows enough that really, are we going to hold him to that? But then there is still that expectation of like when you're first developing, you hold yourself a certain way. And
Yeah.
it sort of, yeah, I've never really sort of questioned that because we do that a lot where I teach that they're not being professional. What is that? What does that mean? What harm is it really in having the Christmas lights? But yeah, I would have probably reacted the same way. I might not have said it to your
Yeah.
face, but I might have been like, wow, that's interesting.
Right. No, totally. I mean, it was an important lesson for me. And I think that's where the mind F
Yeah,
happens,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
like, ooh,
yeah.
I get that. There's a piece of that. Like, slow down, think about who you're writing for.
Right.
These are good lessons. And so
Yeah,
that then gets wrapped up though in the shame. How do
exactly. Yeah,
you
yeah,
separate those things out? But I think like
yeah.
filtering is such an interesting concept, and that
Mhm.
this is why I think many autistics don't have social, quote unquote, social skills problems when they're
Mm,
with their peers who
right.
like the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah,
It's when they're with other people that are not
yeah,
like them,
yeah,
or the neuromajority or the
yeah.
neuronormative, that they're having, quote unquote, difficulty,
Yeah,
social skills
I've had
difficulty.
neurodivergent students many over the years, and one now who adds a lot to lecture, right? And
Mhm.
everybody else at a time when I'm like, does that make sense? No one says anything, and they'll say something, and they've asked me, "Am I talking too much?"
Mhm.
I've gotten that feedback from other instructors. And for me, I'm like, A, remind me of me in graduate school because I'm paying all this money to learn this stuff. I'm getting every damn thing out of this that I can. So I'm going to ask
Yep.
questions. The teacher's here to serve me. I probably drove them crazy. But I was like, no, and I don't want to shame that because the questions that are asked don't feel like just lack of filter. They feel like they're really good questions or they're really good additions. Like I'm talking about diabetes and this person has first person accounts of this. And it's like, yes, please flush that out for the class. Show us what that looks like. That's great. But
Yeah.
then other people that are like professional and control and that person's talking too much. And I'm like, well, at what point is it talking too much? Are the things this person's saying adding or are they detracting? To me, my filter is for myself, am I adding? Am I aligned with this? Or is this just something I feel like I have to kind of get out as in more
Yeah.
of an obsessive way or a compulsive way?
Yeah.
But yeah, I never have any problem. The funny jokes, rapid fire thoughts with other neurodivergents were just right there. And I could see other people watching us like, it's so clear the difference between the worlds. But
Yeah.
shame's a huge one in this around the filter thing for sure.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
got to the point in my life, at times in my life, where I've just sat back and not talked at all then. Because I'm just not going to say anything.
Yeah, you've shared that experience,
Yeah.
especially about your work meetings and
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and like I think this is where a lot of our psychological masking comes in, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
How
That's
this
right.
gets developed and why it's developed and why we put on a
Mhm.
mask at this time, and all of
Yeah. And I
these
think about like
situations.
ADHD kids in elementary ed, they're disruptive and they have to learn to not say everything they're thinking every moment they think
Mhm.
it. And there's some adaptation to that for sure. But how do you
Yeah.
know the difference, right? It's hard to know. Yeah.
It is hard to know, and I think at the end of the day, you need people around you that understand
Mhm,
you,
mhm.
or are
Yeah,
trying to understand you,
yeah.
and are not just kind of making some flat out just quick judgments. But
Yeah, and I can remember
yeah.
when a colleague of our shared colleague, Eric, who hooked me up with you to do the first interview, and I, didn't know you at all, and I looked up your website, and you had Harry Potter references on there, and I was like, "This is so awesome." Someone else might look at that and say, oh, and I was like, this is the reason I want to talk to this person, because she's got it on her damn website. I'm doing this, right?
Yeah, I have a
So
pretty
there,
Reverend
there
bio.
does, who are you pandering to, and what shame is there or not there? And this is a hard one, I guess. There's no hard and fast rules around this. It's a hard one. And if you're talking about social stuff and when you're still developing, you're going to throw things out there and your friends are going to look at you like, and that's a horrible feeling, you know, like in high school when you make a bad joke and everybody's like, it's awful. You want to just sink into the floor and disappear, right?
I know. No, literally. Yeah. Like, can I just be slime and just.
Yep.
It's mortifying. It's just mortifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know. So what is that? You know, what is that balance of authentic self and controlled self? And when does that happen? It just, this is why people get overwhelmed. Yeah. When do I do that? I do it there, not with that person. With that person, And it's like at some point in time, maybe this is why like older people just don't give two craps.
Right. Yeah. They get to a point where they're like, oh my God, I've done that enough in my life. And I think about things I did in the 20s. And I'm like, how was I so metered? Because I was 20. Yeah. And I'm not anymore. And now I'm like, screw that. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm a little bit looser now for sure.
Yeah.
As evidenced by, the porn stash reference is just one of many of 2024. I could, what Dana has written, as many of you guys know, Dana has written 2 books, and they're really lovely visual depictions of what kind of her first person's experience of being autistic. I could write a book. It would just be a short one, though, maybe a coffee table book of all the ridiculous things I've said in that year. You guys, it wouldn't be as popular as Dana's book, but it could bring some S and Gs, what I mean?
It would be funny. It'd be like those funny laughing memes on TikTok right now. You could merch it. Yeah.
And
I'm thinking, I tell the story of when I didn't live here and we were visiting Pike Place Market. And I thought I was really, and this person looked exactly like my husband from behind. Exactly. Same coat, everything. And I grabbed his ass. And Dina. It wasn't him. And he He turned around. I thought I was going to die. And I said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought you were someone else. And then he looked at me up and down. And then he said, I'm not. Because I said, I'm sorry. And he said, I'm not. And then I was like, all right, from that moment on, I'm like, I'm just not going to worry about it anymore.
By the way, are we more impressed with Dana grabbing her ex-husband's ass, or that she has a good enough relationship to continue to still grab his ass? Yeah. I'm impressed by both.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You can grab my ass anytime, Dana. Put that in the book. Just put that in the book. I'm just going to put it in the book.
Yeah. And it's funny that you were saying the porn stash, because I thought that was just something me and my wife knew about, but apparently it's a thing.
It's a thing. Mm-hmm. And then we just got out of November or whatever. So,
Is he younger? Oh yeah, because it's non-shaving November, right?
Yeah. It's for men's health awareness or whatever. But that was November. No, I mean, like, my husband plays this type of stuff all the time. Like, he'll come out of the bathroom. I'm like, you need to turn around and take that thing off. I don't know what is like what grew on your upper lip. I don't know what happened, but he thinks it's hilarious. I mean, like, he just sometimes that happens and I'm like, I can't with you. I can't be seen in public with you. I don't want you to walk in my proximity. I will walk away. My daughter and I are like, don't walk next to him. I mean, we do our.
And part of it is like, you and I have lived through the 70s. So we've been through it already. Younger people are like, oh, this is cool. And we're like,
no, don't that.
It's like the neon clothes in the 90s are coming back. And I'm like, I just can't do that again. I've gone through it. It's a bad idea.
Now we're going for ultimate comfort at this point.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Well, be good to you. We will catch you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.